Dr. Jesse Brown, traditional naturopathic doctor, and I want to welcome you to a call on something that's really vital, really essential to our community. It's about our high blood pressure, our heart health. Now, essentially, it is. I'm wearing red, and there'll be a red themed presentation as well. Heart so vitally important. As you will see, I'm going to go right into the presentation, but I've also got a poll for those of you who are on the call on Zoom and getting admitted as we speak. We want you to take the poll. There's a poll that's going to say heart health poll. We're going to give the results of that at the end of the poll. So I want to, it helps me to know who I'm speaking to, what concerns and things that you have, and what I can do best to respond to that, to share, and in future calls and future courses, what we can do to be responsive to the community that we serve. For those of you who don't know, started Holistic Training Institute the Holistic Training Institute in 1999 as a state licensed naturopathic school. So this is actually our 25th year in operation. So originally we started off doing classes on the services and things that we offered through Detroit Holistic Center, which was started in 1987. And then we branched into the holistic health training. And I did that because I started the Holistic Training Institute because there was no local school. There was no school that you could study naturopathy. The training that I did with some of my mentors, some people who, a local naturopath and chiropractor. And then I traveled across the country. So I had to kind of go far and wide to get some of my training as well. And that just increased over the years. And I wanted to bring that home. I wanted to make it accessible to those people who are interested in carrying this on, because it's essential. There's nothing that's more essential than staying alive and maintaining our health and well-being. And this is something that's part of our tradition as well. This is essential. This is vital. This is critical to our survival. We've overcome a lot of things over the centuries. With health and wellness will always be a concern. Health and wellness will always be something that people will be interested in. It won't come and go like so many of the fads that we see today. From the cradle to the grave, or even before the cradle to the grave, health and wellness will be important, and there are disparities that we should be concerned about. There are health concerns that are impacting our community like never before. So what are we going to do? What can we do about this? We're going to talk about that a bit, especially as it speaks to heart health. And again, for those of you who are in the Zoom room, and I want to thank you for being on Zoom. Some of you are on Facebook Live as well, on my personal page, on the Jesse R. Brown page. There's a Holistic Training Institute page as well. We want you to like and follow those pages. Now, I've got a YouTube channel as well. So speak more about that in a little bit. And but I want to share this poll for those of you who are in the room. I'd like for all of you to participate in the poll. Again, I give the results on that a little later on, but here's the presentation that I want to share with you on this vital and essential topic. All right, let's see. Here's what I want to share. All right. High blood pressure and heart disease. We'll be talking about these two topics and unveiling the power of plant-based choices, you know, and addressing some of these concerns, some of these questions. Are there natural, drugless, non-surgical approaches to high blood pressure and heart disease? That's what a lot of people ask about that. I get contacted about health concerns all the time and have been for more than 30 years. We're going to be addressing why African American rates of high blood pressure and heart disease deaths are so high. Why is it that of all the communities, of all the ethnicities, we're disproportionately impacted by all those health disparities? Can heart disease be reversed? And if so, how? And then what have we learned? There have been researchers such as Nathan Pritikin, Dr. Dean Ornish, and Dr. Esselstyn. There's been something called the China Study, and there's been some studies of rural Africans. I was asked recently about, what happened in Africa? And people ask, is this genetics or is it something else? And then who are the people who had the best health outcomes today? First of all, high blood pressure. 78 million people affected in the United States. 78 million. Now, high blood pressure affects a significant portion of the U.S. population, underscoring its importance as a public health issue. It's the number one reason why people pass away, are heart disease, heart concerns. And that means that it's impacting about 1 in 3 Americans, adult Americans, over 60 years of age. It's disproportionately affecting African Americans. So we get high blood pressure and have chronic high blood pressure and oftentimes uncontrolled high blood pressure and heart disease at higher rates than other people. And that's been going on for approximately the past 20 years or better. So what's going on there? It's a global risk factor. The major factor for high blood pressure and heart disease, and many people think this it's a factor of aging or just a consequence of aging. And truly, what we're going to find is it's not. Here's some historic evidence. Since the 1920s has consistently shown that high blood pressure is not necessarily a consequence of aging. So, for example, when we look at rural Kenya, and that's in Africa, East Africa, it demonstrates how high blood pressures can actually decrease with age, highlighting the potential impact of diet. So, in rural Kenya, you have, as people age, their high blood pressure does not go up. They get to 60 and sometimes the blood pressure even goes down. So their standards, the standards that we have for high blood pressure, what's normal, what's expected, is different when we look at Kenyans. And we're going to talk about the Ugandans a bit as well. So when we look at where we came from, and many of us came from West Africa, but all, African Americans, we have African roots. And when we hear that it's about genetics, why are people saying that? Is it really in our genes, or is it in our choices, in our JEANS, I say, instead of our GENES? There was a new study that came out. It was actually 2021, the most recent study. Journal of the American Medical Association focused on risk factors for heart and blood vessel disease, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. And Black Americans carry the heavier burden of those conditions than white, Asian, or Hispanic folks, according to this study, and subsequent studies as well that back this up. We need not get sicker sooner and die earlier than other people from heart disease, high blood pressure, much less diabetes, which they also call the twins. It often goes with high blood pressure, high blood pressure and heart disease. I mean, high blood pressure and diabetes often go together. We need not have that. We need to do something about it. It's impacting us personally, it's impacting our families, our communities, and it is a great financial burden on the medical system. What is ideal blood pressure? Well, studies suggest that 110/70 actually is ideal. Now, I know historically we've been told 120/80, and sometimes they kind of stretched it later on, saying, well, if you're over 140/90, you're, especially as you age, that's okay. That's getting borderline, but 120/80 is better, and actually 110/70 is even better than that, and that can be achieved. Okay. When we talk about really reducing the risk of having strokes, heart attack, cardiac incidents, the closer that we are to that 110/70, the better. So you definitely want to be 120/80 or so, ideally uncontrolled. And the closer you can get to 110/70 is better. So it'd be lower than the standard recommendations. You'll find in many of the tests that are being performed over time, as the norm goes up, sometimes they change the expectations, say, well, we used to say this was the standard, and now we're going to push it up a bit more. There's certain reasons for that I won't get into on this presentation, but we need to look more towards what the ideal is and not just what the norm is. So 110/70 is ideal, and I know a lot of people, if you have had your blood pressure taken lately, if you've got high blood pressure, if you're taking medication, or if you're trying to control in other ways, pay close attention to the numbers, monitor that over time, and let's see what we can do to make that even better. Okay. Okay. So where do we get those numbers from is in terms of 110/70? There was a study of 1,800 patients. A comprehensive study in rural Kenya found no cases of high blood pressure or heart disease among the participants. And how is that and why is that? We say it's the impact of a whole foods diet. So the findings there, when these rural Kenyans had a traditional diet, and we call that whole foods plant-based diet, their numbers were ideal and that maintained pretty much throughout life. No high blood pressure. So here in the United States, when you have 1 in 3 adults being affected by high blood pressure, 1 in 3 over 60, how is it that you can have millions of people in the country and they're not exhibiting high blood pressure there like we are here? So again, it's not genetics. They attribute that to a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, and fruits. Now here, it's important to know So they have very little animal products. Now here we'd probably say, well, they can't afford to eat meat. It's not as much a part of the culture. So even when they have cows and chickens and other animals and those types of things, it's a relatively, a very small part of their diet. The meats and much less processed foods and the other things that contribute to, and that we know contribute to, elevation in blood pressure and heart disease. A global perspective on traditional diets. Traditional diets now, when they also look at traditional diets in Asia as well, the ones that are plant-based are linked to low blood pressure levels, limited meat consumption, limited sweets in processed foods. They're many times they live in agrarian, what we call an agrarian society. They're growing the food, they're eating it locally. They're not going to the local burger place, or they are preparing foods at home. That's just part of their natural way of living and being. And in the places in the world that they've studied this, in fact, there was something called the China study. They found that in these what they call blue zones, in places where people typically live to be 100 and they were healthy, they were eating whole foods, plant-based diet. They were eating from nature, things as close to nature as possible. They were not processing the foods. They were not adding high amounts of sodium. They were not getting things out of cans and boxes and those things. They were eating traditional diets. Western diets versus plant-based diet. American Heart Association have found some of the lowest blood pressures amongst again, these folks that have the plant-based diet. And this is what they attribute to controlling high blood pressure and heart disease. The largest study on plant-based eating actually was from one that was conducted with 89,000 Californians. And it was a large number of Californians who essentially had varying degrees of, or varying diets, let's say. So you had from what they call the flexitarians, people who ate, meat products and animal products sometime, all the way to strict vegetarians or vegans, people who didn't eat any animal products, or perhaps once a week, and found that there was a what they call stepwise decrease in hypertension rates from the non-vegetarians to the vegans. So the more plant-based a person was, the lower their blood pressure, and subsequently the lower their risk for heart disease and the incidence of heart disease. In fact, there's one what they call blue zone in the United States, which is Loma Linda, California, the Seventh-day Adventist of Loma Linda, California, who exhibited the best high blood pressure, lowest risk for heart disease, as well as a number of other diseases. So leads us into the study here. Lower rates of lifestyle diseases, significantly lower rates, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, when they followed a high plant-based diet. And so this is one population within the United States that's exhibiting some of the same, I'll say, statistics or outcomes as you would have people in rural Africa or in China or some other places where traditionally people would say, well, these folks, they live differently than we do. They live at different elevations. They don't have the same levels of stress. Seventh-day Adventists in the United States had the same employment. You wouldn't know them, you couldn't distinguish them from anyone else. But when they are vegetarian and when they ideally abstain from alcohol and observe a day of rest and they have some other lifestyle factors in there, much less exercising, then they're exhibiting the same low levels of high blood pressure, heart disease, and subsequently other chronic ailments that typically plague us in the United States compared to what you may find in other countries. Okay, tools to manage high blood pressure and heart disease. What are the answers to this? One, adopting a whole foods plant-based diet, avoiding meats, sweets, processed food, dairy, and animal-based products or foods, including chicken and fish. And for those people who think that chicken and fish are okay, chicken and fish, if you look at how it's processed and how it's handled today, in fact, we're getting many health problems as a result of chicken. A lot of bacteria, a lot of things that are disturbing our gut health and impacting our health. And again, a lot of that is in the processing. Part of it is because it's an animal product as well, and all those are causing inflammation and certain concerns. And it's also because of the processing. And then with the fish, for those of you who think the fish is okay, well, unfortunately, the fish and the waterways are not as clean as what they once were. And so many of the fish are being impacted by things like heavy metals and all the stuff that's out there. So best to avoid that as well. Also reducing sodium intake. We're one country that loves to put salt on there. I've known people who put salt on their food even before they taste it. And we get accustomed to, sometimes at a very early age. In fact, they're finding that children as young as 10 years of age are already getting plaquing and streaking and problems with the circulatory system. And so if it starts at 10, or if it starts, with the mother's diet, and then it's this heart disease and these issues are starting very early, it's by the time they're 20 and 30s or 40s or so, it's almost inevitable they're going to have high blood pressure, heart disease. And again, we're mistakenly going to attribute that to genetics. Oh, it's something that runs in the family. So reducing sodium, increasing foods that have a high nitric oxide content. Our greens are very important. There are a number of foods in here. There's one thing that and I'm not endorsing this particular brand or anything, but you see this is beetroot powder. Beetroot greens and beetroot is very high in nitric oxide, and that's very essential for our circulation. That was one of the key nutrients that was found, and there was a team actually who discovered nitric oxide. They were looking for a solution to high blood pressure and found that nitric oxide, which is the active ingredient, what makes Viagra and Cialis and those things work as well, was very good for circulation, increasing blood flow, and addressing high blood pressure, heart concerns, and consumption. I'm not saying the Cialis and Viagra does that. That's what gives the blood flow, which enhances a man's sexual performance. But it's the nitric oxide, the nutrient that was so essential in terms of the heart health. In fact, ED or erectile dysfunction is considered a risk factor and an early indicator that there are heart concerns going on. Okay, so if there's problem with the circulation going to the sexual organs, going to the penis, there's there's compromised circulation going to the heart and other essential organs and parts of the body. What else can we do? Drinking pure water. Now, there was a study some years ago. In fact, it was conducted by a medical doctor who was actually from Michigan, and he found a link between chlorine, cholesterol, and coronaries. In fact, there's a study out there. For those of you who like to do research, find this, or I may put a link or on the page or something here. He found the link between the chlorine being present in water, along with cholesterol causing coronary heart disease or atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, plaquing, etc. So in the areas in the United States and in the world where chlorine was not present, the levels of blood pressure, heart plaquing, arteriosclerosis, etc., is lower. Okay, so the purity of your water is very important. Okay, and again, chlorine, cholesterol, coronaries. I may have that order mixed up a little bit there, but it is available out there on the web. So non-chlorinated water, that would mean that you want to ideally find a source for drinking as well as bathing and cooking. That would be something that would be essential and something you want to look at and invest in when it comes to your heart health and for you and your family. Now, green tea. Green tea is something that has been very beneficial, high in antioxidants, has a number of benefits. Hibiscus, I got some hibiscus tea that I'm drinking today. That's very good to take. Adding garlic. Many of you may have heard that garlic is essential and very important for adding into your diet. We should have that for our immune health as well as our circulatory health. You know, you can even use, and I oftentimes when I'm preparing food, use a garlic powder, not garlic salt, but garlic powder. That makes a difference in terms of circulation, as does cayenne pepper. You know, and almost the hotter the better. Very good for circulation, very good for the heart. Turmeric, good for bringing down inflammation. And as I mentioned, beetroot. Okay. Flax seeds are also very good. So when we're looking at improving our circulation, lowering our cholesterol, in fact, lowering it from, they kept on increasing these levels of acceptable cholesterol levels. Now it's about 200. You can have levels of cholesterol about 200. They say ideally for your heart health, it should be below that. Flaxseed, fiber, your fruits and vegetables that are high in fiber, that will hold on to the cholesterol, that will help to move it through the digestive system, will also keep your heart healthy, and improve your digestive function, improve your immune system, has a wide variety of benefits. So again, flax seeds, your fiber, again, combined with a whole foods plant-based diet, will help to keep you regular, help to keep your immune system strong, and of course, your heart is essential. Okay. What else can we do? Join others that have similar goals for support and options on diet and lifestyle. So many times we are not successful or don't stay on a plan because the people around us are not supportive. If your family, if your significant other, your spouse or significant other is not supportive. If you don't have other people around you, if your family members give you a lot of pushback, okay? Especially with all the advertisement that you see out here on the stuff that we should eat, the stuff that is fun, the stuff that is promoted, a lot of the processed foods, the fast foods and those types of things. With all those pressures, oftentimes it's hard for people to do the right thing when it comes to diet. Okay. They'd have us eating whatever and drinking and having all kinds of behaviors that we know work against our health. It's a lot of that is societal pressure. Until there's a different culture, unless you're around other people who are doing things differently, chances are you're going to do the same thing. So be around other people. Decide some of the things that I do to go is I decide what I'm going to do before I go out. I prepare my foods ahead of time. If I'm going to be someplace in there, I'm going to ask them if they're going to have something plant-based that I can eat. If I'm going out with some friends or for some occasion, I'm going to call or find out about the restaurant and find out what they have. Fortunately, more and more, there are more vegan, vegetarian, and plant-based options. It's important that we start asking for these things. And again, if they're not there, look at what you can do and prepare a lot of these things for yourself. One of the things that really helped me, especially during COVID, was the fact that I prepared food 98%, 98% definitely. I prepared the food on my own. I usually get a pot of a crock pot dish that I would prepare on Sunday. And I would have my beans and my greens and in a variety of vegetables. I'd look at what I had, in my refrigerator and put and come up with some creative ways to make what's in the kitchen. They get as much fiber, to get as much variety, in terms of colors, okay, that I could. And I prepared that. And so I would always have that. I prepare enough on Sunday that I had enough to carry me through the week. So many times it's a matter of deciding ahead of time and not being pressured into what happens during a holiday or a weekend or a special occasion or celebration. Set aside some time for meal planning. What this is going to take is setting some time aside to plan for meals. And I know some people don't cook, don't want to cook. Haven't cooked in a long time, weren't raised that way. But I'll tell you, if your health and your well-being of your family, your loved ones, is top priority, then we need to take some time to do that. One of the measures, one of the standards for healthfulness is, are we preparing food at home? You know what you're purchasing. So you set aside time to plan your meals, to plan your menu, to do the shopping, and just get the things on your list that are going to benefit your health. Get an eating schedule. You have to get a regular, what I did as a child, how I was raised. We had meal times. We had regular meal times, and we ate together, okay, as opposed to randomly or eating out here and there. I didn't go to fast food places and things like that until I was, I don't know, in my teens and more so when I became an adult. But we need to reel that back in and do what folks did in the South, do what the rural Africans, these folks are doing. They're not going out to eat. They're not doing the fast food thing. They're preparing their food and they're preparing it the healthiest thing they can have. And they may not even think about it that way, because a lot of that is just tradition to eat from the land, and they know how expensive it is to eat out. Us, we got a little prosperous, and we end up getting diseases and obesity and the heart disease, et cetera, that comes from this newfound prosperity. Schedule times for exercise, for rest, for reflection. That's important. Exercising, how much exercise do we need? One, you can do 90 minutes or so of moderate exercise. A minimum of 40 minutes of exercise is recommended daily. In order for our circulation to improve, we need to change our respiration, the rate of breathing, and how the blood is pumping through our body. We know that people who are in hospitals and clinic, people who are bedridden, people who are not moving, couch potatoes as we call them, people who sit in front of a computer or at home a lot of people who have been restricted because of, working at home, and much of that happened after COVID, gained a lot of weight as a result, and their numbers got worse again. Blood pressure, blood sugar, BMI, and all that went up. The less active that people became, the less active that people were outside of the home. Okay, we need to turn that around for the sake of our health, our longevity, and our immune systems. Okay, so conclusion: the power of dietary choices, reducing high blood pressure risk. Adopt a plant-based diet. That's a proactive way or a corrective way of addressing heart concerns. Dr. Dean Ornish published something. Well, first it was Nathan Pritikin, who was a researcher in engineering and did some incredible things in regards to food and having a more of a plant-based diet along with exercise. And then Dr. Dean Ornish, a medical doctor and researcher, found that we can reverse heart disease, reverse high blood pressure by adopting some of these same principles: plant-based, exercise, adopting healthier ways and different ways of being than the standard American diet. They found that when they really told people who had these heart concerns, who were at higher risk or exhibiting many of these chronic ailments, when they told them the truth, when they told them either we can give you stents, we can give you surgery, we can remount your blood vessels, or we can give you a triple bypass or whatever, or you can make a change in diet. The ones that did consistently got the results in reversing heart disease, reversing and lowering their blood pressure, reversing much of what medicine would say is not possible to do. And medically, it's not. There's no drug, the statins and all these other drugs that people are taking are not reversing it. That's why I'm telling you once you get on a medication, you're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life. Why? Because people aren't willing to make the change, they're not going to get those results. And I believe that we should be given the option. We should be given the option. We should be given the guidance. There should be more incentives, that foods that are helpful for us should be more affordable, more accessible in all communities, particularly in communities of color. So it's our dietary choices. It's some of our supplementation. It's how we live. It's how we address stress. It's also where we put our priorities. If we put our priorities in terms of cars, getting the nicest, getting a new car, or spending a lot of money on clothes, or on the best alcohol, okay? All these other things that really, I want to say, distract us and oftentimes keep us from investing in the one thing that's most important. I want to quote or refer to one of our U.S. Surgeon Generals, Regina Benjamin, who I met some years ago. She said one of the main reasons why African American women, I'm picking on the women just a little bit, okay, but I'm quoting her. She said one of the reasons why African American women were not exercising is because of the money that they spend on their hair. So if you spend a lot of money, you invest a lot of money into, hairstyles and things that are not conducive to going to the gym and exercising, many women would avoid going to the gym. Okay. And what are we told? Oh, you look good. Oh, your hair looks so good. Oh, your clothes look so good. Oh, those red bottoms or whatever that looks so good. We're giving praise for that, but not how we take care of ourselves. Okay. And our cars, our clothes, our hair, and those things are not gonna cause us to live any longer a better quality of life. So we got to reprioritize. Okay. So again, I want to thank you all for your participation on this call. However you joined us, whether it was on Facebook or on Zoom, and for those people who are on Zoom, I hope that you have taken the survey as well. I've got a poll that I put up there, and I'm going to take some questions in just a second. So I'm going to ask those people who are assisting me. 2, 1, monitor Facebook and let me know what questions that people have. And for those people who are in the room, whether it's for people who are on the call, I'm going to ask for you, do you have any questions? And then I'm going to leave us with a charge as well. Okay, so I'm ending the poll now. So of the people who took the poll, thank you. Okay, so a number of people found out, fortunately, some people find out about us through the Holistic Health Matters newsletter. There is a newsletter that I have called Holistic Health Matters, and I share some information. I put the announcements on the calls, but also share some helpful information on a regular basis. Sometimes I do it weekly. Sometimes it even goes out a couple of days a week. But my goal is to regularly inform you of some of the latest information in terms of health and wellness that exists, in terms of foods, in terms of supplements, in terms of alternative ways and things that we tend not to get in mainstream media. Some people find out about on Facebook. Thank you for those people who will be getting referred through friends and people who are sharing it. Some of the people on the call or in the room here do have high blood pressure. Some don't. And some are on the call because a family member has it. Thank you. And yeah, you got most people who are been diagnosed with high blood pressure are taking medication, and some are not. Okay. Okay, some people believe that high blood pressure runs in their family. And I'm going to be famously known for saying, if it runs in your family, run it out of your family. Find out what you can do, and then do that. Be the healer in your home and your family. Are you committed to doing something? Everybody who responded that said they are committed to doing something to manage their blood pressure. Some people are not sure. And over 57% lost a friend or relative to heart disease. And I think if we look closely enough, all of us have lost someone, know someone who's affected by heart disease, high blood pressure, It's rampant within our community. So I'm going to address some of the questions and some of the comments that came up here as well. Options, guidance, information, key. Okay. So options, guidance, information, key. So here, there's two things in here. One, can I talk about the sources of fresh foods? Fresh foods. Here's some tips on what we can do to eat better. And that is get as fresh as you can. Try to get it locally. Organic is good. There's something that's called the Clean 15. There's, let's see, what is it? Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. There are some foods that you always want to get organic if you can. And again, I say if the choice is eating whatever processed foods, junk, whatever, or getting something organic and you're not getting something because um, um, it's not organic. Get the foods that you can afford, to get the food that you can, as opposed to worrying about if everything is organic. Get it, clean it, clean it off. There's some good methods for removing external pesticides that's not going to do anything for what could be inside of it. But it would be better to have some foods, some fruits and vegetables that are not organic compared to these fast foods and a lot of these processed foods that are available. That's what most people are um are having processed foods that are undermining our health worse than some foods that are not organic could ever do. Um, locally, when you go to your farmers markets, when you can establish relationships and talk to the farmers and ask them about their growing methods. If it's not organic, sometimes you have some growers that are using what you call organic methods or practices or minimal or chemical free practices. That's very good to do. And, let's see, the foods that are the closest to you and in season tend to be the best. When you have they have to get something that's from thousands of miles away, that's often picked before it's really ripened, before it has its maximum nutritional value. So the better to get things that are in season and close to you. Seeds and no seeds. That's a big controversial thing. There's some people like to say that it's no good if it doesn't have seeds. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I won't be able to get into all that in this particular call. Everything is not genetically modified if it does not contain seeds. Okay. If you're not eating fruits and vegetables because you can't find it with seeds, I think you're making a big mistake. And again, we're gonna have to address that in another call. The difference between our conventional, some of our conventional foods, genetically modified. What's the difference between something that's genetically modified and what's hybridized? Okay. And is hybridized all bad? Are people dying from eating hybrid foods? That's a whole area that we can address on another call. Let's see. Options. I'm not sure. The person who asked about options and guidance and please be a little bit more, try to be a little bit more clear in terms of the call. Let's see, what kind of beetroot powder? Ooh, what kind of beetroot powder? Okay, I'll say I'm using the one from a company called Now. They have a lot of good products. I've met some of them. In fact, I'll be at a conference. I'll be at a trade show and conference in just a few weeks, and I'll be meeting with them. So I do some comparisons. I can't there's so many things that are out there. I can't do full comparisons on everything, but again, I like the quality. I like the company. I'm using this particular one. Um, Cleaning organic vegetables. That there are a few different ways of doing that. From using baking soda to like some apple cider vinegar. There are some washes. There are some things that you can prepare yourself at home as well. Some things need to be soaked. Some things can be, for a period of time. Some things um, can be rinsed to get the maximum off. I say one, look at the guide from um, it's called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Okay. And it's by I'm trying to think of the name of the group that has that. If somebody knows, put it in notes, send me a note there. But there's look for Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen in terms of what foods that you always want to get organic if at all possible, and what things you can get away with it not being organic because either they'll spray as much pesticides on it or it's by its nature it's more resistant to the chemicals. Um, doesn't matter if you use beetroot powder, beetroot vitamins, or gummies. I use the powder. I've only used the powder. And then some people will also get beets and then do some juicing with that. But if you're going to use beets and fresh beets, you're going to use a small amount. You're not going to use a full. It's so concentrated. Use a small amount of that in combination with other things. And again, I add it to my smoothies typically, and I normally try to get it in daily. There are also some ways that you can measure your nitric oxide levels too. Is non-seeded organic fruit okay? Yes. I'm going to say yes, without getting into specific ones. Again, see the, and I know there's a lot of controversy about that, and some people may take some opposition. It may even take some opposition to that. One of the reasons why we have so many health problems in our community is not because we're eating food that's not organic or that's not seeded. It's the stuff that we are eating. We look at the fast foods, the garbage is out there, the stuff that's processed is terrible. Okay. And we're eating foods that are not ideal. And so again, I'd rather eat something that didn't have seeds, and that can happen for different reasons. And you have some fruits and vegetables and greens and such that doesn't have seeds than to eat the fast foods and other stuff that's being peddled out here. There was a young lady that I saw online, and she said, "Oh, you know, I'm afraid I'm throwing out all the food that I have because she has concerns about it." But she's talking about eating a donut and water or something like that. Eat the fruits and vegetables. Okay. Um, let's see what else. The best way to clean beetroot powder, fruit with seeds. And again, ask more and more about having fruits with seeds. And the more you ask, sometimes the more you ask, the more that you will get. Again, talk to your grocers. Go in there when there's certain things that you want to um, that you want to see on the store shelves. They listen to the consumers. If they hear enough people who are asking for it, they tend to be really responsive to that as well. Some other tips that I've gotten from the grapevine is that going to some of these Chinese markets, you're going to find a lot of greens. You're going to find bok choy and a wider variety of vegetables than you'll typically find in many of the standard grocery stores. So check them out as well. Because sometimes you find that the cost is much better and the variety is great as well. Getting variety in terms of our fruits and our vegetables, the colors and those things is essential. One of the reasons why we get having the same ailments in our communities, we're eating the same thing over and over and over again. So we're not getting nutritional density, we're not getting nutritional variety. Okay. So and by the way, so I'm gonna give a shout out for those to the new Detroit People's Food Co-op. For those people in Detroit area, Detroit People's Food Co-op, support them. Okay, I know they're going to be operating with integrity as well, and so check them out. They'll be open. I believe it's the 1st of May. They'll be opening up locally, and I'm a member, and I'm be encouraging them to do even more education and working with the community and getting things that are sourced that are great for us as well. Okay, so I trust that many of you will look at changing your diet, changing your way of eating, and therefore breaking a lot of the generational curses and problems that we have. Okay. Again, it's not what's in our genes. GENES is what's in that JEANS. It's in the choices that we're making from day to day. So hopefully you've gotten some tools, some tips, and some ideas on what you can do. I've been asked over the years to provide further guidance. If you're interested in classes, courses, some other things, go to our YouTube page. There's a YouTube page for Holistic Training Institute, and go to our website as well. Go to Holistic Training Institute. That's WHOLISTIC Training Institute. So if from time to time I'll have some free courses on there, like 10 herbs every home needs. I'll have it on these subjects. I'll have some of these calls that I do on the website, in YouTube, and of course, when you can, support the Holistic Training Institute. You want to become a healer in your home, in your family, in your community. You want to help to preserve, protect, promote our healing tradition. Then you can learn with me. I'm gonna do this as long as I can. At some point, I'm gonna retire, but I'm gonna do this as long as I can because our people are perishing for lack of knowledge. It's about our health and well-being.